This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
The plan would invest about $50 billion in the region. It would create 1 million jobs in the West Bank and Gaza. It would take their unemployment rate from about 30% to single digits. it would reduce their poverty rate by half if it's implemented correctly. It's a 10-year plan. It would double their GDP. We've had it peer-reviewed now by about a dozen economists in a dozen countries, and we're very excited to put it forward and share it now with a lot of leading business leaders, a lot of leading investing institutions, and then also the public. Fly out to Bahrain, be a part of this discussion, and I think it's a great sign to show the Palestinian people that the world does care about seeing this work.
And of the $50 billion, how is it divided? Does it all go to the Palestinians or some other countries involved?
Yeah, more than half goes to the West Bank and Gaza, and then what we also want to do is stimulate Jordan, Egypt, and Lebanon, because if you can get that whole region starting to lift, and Israel's economy is already doing phenomenally well, but if you integrate everything and you're able to get quicker flow of goods, quicker flow of people, and then people are able to invest in education and infrastructure and all the different areas that are necessary in industry instead of bullets and munitions and war, then I think that will really lead to a big increase in investment in the area and more jobs and better quality of life and hopefully more peace along with it.
Now, past peace plans have struggled. How is this one different?
This conflict has been going on for a very, very long time, and there's been a lot of attempts at it, which have all been, I think, very well-intended and noble attempts to try and solve it. When we got involved, we looked at all these attempts and we tried to study why they didn't work. And there's a lot of good things that were done. We tried to take all the good things they did and then come up with a new approach to try to bring this forward. We thought that the economics was a very important part. We look at what President Trump's been doing for America's economy. He's made it the strongest in the world. We're seeing incredible job creation. America's becoming more competitive, much stronger. And he did that also by studying the policies that have worked over the last years and the policies that haven't worked. And he's implemented them very rigorously. We've done is the same thing for the region, basically saying these are the things that haven't worked, these are the things that have held it back, and what we want to do is try to figure out how can we take all of the good intentions and how can we take all of the money that's being spent in the region now and try to coordinate it towards achieving better results. And so we have a very extensive economic plan, and then we have a very extensive political plan. Again, I find that in the real world, the way you solve problems is by really going into the details, putting forward proposals, agreeing, disagreeing on certain things. That's very healthy. That's how you resolve a conflict. Remember, nobody agrees up until right before they do, so it's not unexpected for people to posture and to criticize things. But what we're hoping to do is create a framework where we can change the discussion and get people to look at these problems differently and more granularly, and hopefully in a way that can lead to some breakthroughs.
Should we view this as a Marshall Plan type proposal?
So our intention wasn't to set out to do that, though a lot of people who have peer-reviewed it have said that it does resemble the Marshall Plan. I've been reading more about the Marshall Plan, and one of the things that they did very successfully was they didn't just give aid, they infused money into the private sector, and they created an environment where businesses can thrive, capital could be invested, capital was actually excited to go and invest in those areas, and that led to increased productivity, increased GDP, increased wages, and better quality of life for a lot of the people. This is a similar notion where you're not just giving people fish like we've been doing here for a long time, you're teaching them to fish, and then you're buying them fishing rods, and you're helping them become something that will be much more sustainable, because the current status quo is not a sustainable situation. We have a lot of different proposals for how to stimulate a lot of different areas. We have over 100 different project proposals, but ones that will all have to be approved by the host countries that they're in. People are tired of the way that this has been stuck in the mud for so long, and what we're hoping we can do is get people to look at this a little bit differently, come together, share ideas, and then hopefully we can create a framework on which to move forward economically. But I will say that you can't push the economic plan forward without resolving the political issues as well, and we're fully aware of that, and we intend to address that at a later time. There'll be criticisms from some places. Hopefully it will be constructive. I always prefer having people share what they're for as opposed to what they're against, and if people have constructive criticism, we'll welcome it and we'll try to make modifications. But the hope is that we can bring all of the different people together from Europe, from Asia, from the Middle East.
Have you considered a situation where there is not sufficient interest in this economic plan?
We're proud to put it out there. It's been peer-reviewed extensively, and I think that it will be something that will be good. Whether it's executable will really depend. A big part of what we're talking about is what are the security issues that'll be handled in the political plan necessary for capital to come.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tories Have Got Talent. You can decide which of you are Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, etc. My name's Ian Dale. I'm going to be your compere for the afternoon. Let me just tell you one or two things that are going to happen this afternoon. This is, of course, the first of the 16 different leadership hustings that are taking place in all regions and countries of the United Kingdom. Welcome to everyone watching the live stream on the Conservatives' Facebook page and Twitter feed. And in a few moments' time, I think viewers from Sky News and the BBC will be joining us as well. Now, the Conservative Party, as you know, isn't just choosing a party leader today or in the next few weeks. You're choosing a Prime Minister for this country. Now, these hustings are designed to put the two candidates through their paces. That's in part down to you. It's also in part down to me. Let me tell you the format of what's going to happen this afternoon. We've got a couple of short warm-up acts for you. I hope they don't mind me describing them as that. Then we will show you a short video from Boris Johnson's campaign team before we introduce Boris. He will then talk to you for a maximum of 7 minutes. Yes, all of 7 minutes. Then I will ask him 15 minutes worth of questions. Then it's over to you. And I should explain that you've all been asked to submit questions in advance. We've had literally hundreds. I've selected them myself. No one from Conservative campaign headquarters has been involved in the questions that I've selected. I've got completely free rein on those questions, and I've got completely free rein to ask any questions in the interview that I like, because we all know there are always conspiracy theorists in these things that think that there must be some malign influence somewhere. Well, let me tell you from the start, if it goes wrong, it's down to me, nobody else. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. It's Andy Street, Mayor of the West Midlands.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm the warm-up act, and of course, my job is to welcome everybody to the West Midlands. So, Mr. Chairman, fellow members, and of course, our future leaders, welcome to the West Midlands, the heart of the country, and today, the centre of this critical national decision. We've got members from across the region here with us today, from Shrewsbury to Solihull, from Warwick to Wolverhampton, and you are indeed all welcome. Now, here in the West Midlands, I hope you can see the difference that Conservative leadership is making. We're busy renewing our region, laying the foundations, and you can see the cranes in the skyline. And today, as one of the most vibrant and diverse communities anywhere in the world, we are making huge progress. This is the fastest growing region over the last 7 years. We're the export capital of the UK. And of course, young people are voting with their feet. More young Londoners coming here than anywhere else. And at the same time, we've reduced our carbon emissions by 20% over just 6 years. And most importantly, we're working very hard to ensure that success is shared by everyone. Last year, over 20% more homes built here. We're investing billions in transport, and for the first time ever, now over half of our population are educated and have skills to level 3. So, you're here in a region that genuinely is seeing a renaissance. But the most important thing for today's debate is that that is happening under Conservative leadership. A Conservative mayor in partnership with a Conservative government. And the next chapter of this story will be written by one of the two gentlemen you'll be hearing from just a little later on. But let's not forget that that progress could all be thrown away by a hard left Labour government. So our new leader, quite simply, has got to secure the progress we're seeing. They have got to stop Jeremy Corbyn dead in his tracks. And this afternoon, we'll debate some of the great challenges facing Britain and think about our place in the world in the 21st century. And above all else, we will hear how our new leader will take that battle to Labour and will deliver for places like the West Midlands, modern, inclusive, and of course, progressive places in Britain. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've all got a great responsibility to choose our next Prime Minister. Good luck to both of the contenders this afternoon, and good luck to all of you in exercising your judgment wisely. Thank you very much.
Andy, thank you very much. I should have said that there is going to be no interval act either, I have to tell you. We're going straight from Boris Johnson to Jeremy Hunt. There will obviously be a video from Jeremy Hunt's campaign team as well before we move on to his opening statement, 15 minutes of interview, and also then half an hour or so of questions. Let me, before we get to our first contender though, let me introduce you to Pam Hall, Vice President of the Conservative Party National Convention. Pam.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm not just part of the warm-up today, I'm a stand-in warm-up because Andrew Sharp, unfortunately, has spent a couple of hours on the M25 this morning, so he's not here yet, but he will be with us later. But I'm actually going to read you his speech. So it's an honour and a privilege to welcome you to this, the first of 16 hustings for the leadership candidates around the country. It's great to see so many people here. And you won't be surprised to hear there is huge interest in attending the hustings and necessitated more than one change of venue around the country. It is gratifying to see all our members engaging on such a massive scale, but I'm not surprised. By now, we are all used to the typical media narrative that we Tories are propped up in bath chairs with hearing trumpets, wearing Grandad's tweed suits. But nothing could be further from the truth. That doesn't mean they won't try and find unflattering pictures to prove their points, so breathe in, ladies and gentlemen. The party that I and my National Convention colleagues know, the one that we see every week as we travel around the country, is made up of engaged and engaging men and women, of every colour, faith, age and sexual preference, united by their belief in our country, our institutions and an unshakable tradition of public service. I've never met anyone in our party who cares where you come from. We only care where you're going. We must not forget that there is far more that unites us than divides us. As Lord Hailsham said, conservatism is not so much a philosophy as an attitude, a constant force performing a timeless function in the development of a free society. We are here today to take a solemn duty as part of that commitment to a free society. We are not just electing a new party leader, but our Prime Minister. The country which we love would expect us to ensure that this process is rigorous. We need a Prime Minister who will deliver Brexit and beat our political opponents. Someone who, as those of us who knock on doors know, week in and week out, are less committed to that free society than we are. Last Saturday, the National Convention held the first hustings for the 6 candidates that were still in the race. I'm sure you will have heard feedback from that event by now, but if you haven't, it was an excellent day. Good-humoured, positive, respectful and bursting with talent and good ideas. All those who attended were impressed by the quality on display, and I know that those same qualities will dominate these hustings. Supported by the National Convention offices, Andrew made the case at the party board that the leadership campaign had to reach every part of the United Kingdom. All members should have access to at least one hustings, and there was no disagreement. So at this point, we'd like to thank the party chairman, the Right Honourable Brandon Lewis MP, for his support with this. Andrew would also like to thank him more generally for his support for the voluntary party. He's been very consistent, and we have more resources at our disposal than for many years, in a large part because of his efforts. I'd also like to thank your regional team, led by Jim Cooper, OBE. As you will know, Jim is a tireless advocate for the West Midlands, and he is deservedly held in very high regard. Andrew's now given me a quote, which is actually from Winston Churchill, so I'm delighted to him for that. And it's what he said to his association when addressing them for the very last time in 1959. It resonates today, and I hope it will inform our final 2 candidates. By our courage, our endurance and our brains, we have made our way in the world to the lasting benefit of mankind. Let us not lose heart. Our future is one of high hope. That's spot on. And we look forward to the candidates outlining their vision for our future.
Thank you very much, Pam. Well, before we get to our main event, let's hear from the chairman of the Conservative Party, Brandon Lewis.
Good afternoon. Thank you. And it's a privilege to be back here in the West Midlands, somewhere that is so important both to our country and to our party, not just with the mayoral elections next year, with so many key seats for us. It is very fitting that we start our hustings for the party here in Birmingham in the West Midlands. I also want to thank the 1922 Committee, our colleagues in Parliament who have run such a fantastically efficient and professional process over the last few weeks that has led us to having two great candidates for us all to consider in the weeks ahead. And not just as your chairman, but as a long-standing member of the party, I absolutely appreciate the importance for all of us as members to have the chance over the next few weeks to hear from our candidates and to cast our votes for the next leader of our party in the solemn, absolute, understood knowledge that we are selecting the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And that's why it is so important and why I'm so pleased that we are able to hold these hustings over the next few weeks in every region and every nation of the United Kingdom, so that every member will have their opportunity to come and hear from our candidates firsthand. And today we are live streaming this event so that everybody can see what our candidates have to say about the future of our party and of our country. And next week we'll be holding our first ever digital hustings as well, that everybody across the country will be able to view and take part in. Because we are determined to make sure that everybody knows what we know, which is that we are a party that understands the duty that lays before us. And I know all of you will take the opportunity, both today and over the next few weeks, to make that decision well informed by what you hear. And I hope that this afternoon and over the next few weeks, you enjoy the hustings as we hear from both of our candidates who will be outlining to all of us the vision that they have got for taking our country forward and for taking our party forward. And that's a chance for us as a whole party to remind the country and show people across the United Kingdom why it is the Conservative Party that has the ideas, the vision and the enthusiasm and the drive to deliver opportunity for everybody across our country. Enjoy this afternoon and thank you for coming.
Lots were drawn and Boris Johnson will be going first, but before we hear from Boris Johnson, his campaign team have done a little video for us.
Nice to see you. Hello, good morning. Hello. Yes, of course you can. If I get in, we'll come out deal or no deal on October the 31st. Good man. We'll do that. Thank you very much. Would that make you come back and vote Conservative again? Yes. That's the spirit. Yes. But we've got to have the courage to tell the people of this country that we can do it if we really want to. And that's the only way, actually.
And you're the only person that can do that.
A lot of teachers are telling me that they feel that the funding per pupil isn't high enough. We need more police out there, but sometimes I think we need more visibility. And stop and search.
Yes.
Totally with you.
I'm scared because my daughter used to live in London Road.
Yeah.
She's at university.
Safe big city it was when I used to run it. I can tell you we got crime down by 20%. We got the murder rate down.
Like Mr. Carnoff, but it's not good.
But I also think we need to be supporting the wealth creators and the business sector, because otherwise you're not going to have the dosh to invest. Right. Cut some taxes and you'll get more money in. Would you normally think of yourself as a Conservative voter, would you say?
No.
No? Ever? Can I ask you a terrible question? Would you consider voting for me?
Yes.
If there is one lesson from that referendum of 2016, it is that too many people feel left behind, that they're not able to take part fully in the opportunities and success of our country. That's why now is the time to unite our society and unite our country, to build the infrastructure, to invest in education, to improve our environment and to support our fantastic NHS, to lift everyone in our country, and of course also to make sure that we support our wealth creators and the businesses that make that investment possible. Now is the time for us to believe in ourselves and what we can do. And that's why I am standing to be leader of the Conservative Party. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, my friends. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friends. I cannot hide it from you that we meet in dark days for our party, and I have never known us to be down at 17 points in the polls. I've never known a national election when our wonderful Conservative Party should get 9%. And we all know roughly what has gone wrong. It's two other parties, Brexit Party and the Lib Dems, sprouting like puffballs and feeding saprophytically on the decay of the two main parties because of our failure to get on and deliver the mandate of the people. And yet I say to you this afternoon in Birmingham that the hour is darkest before dawn. And I'm here to tell you in all confidence that we can turn this thing round and we can go on to defeat Jeremy Corbyn. And the first thing we need to do, you know what it is? We need to get Brexit done. And as someone who campaigned for Brexit, who believes in Brexit, someone who has meditated deeply on the opportunities that Brexit could bring our country, I am the right man to unleash now on that project. And in fact, there is a pretty broad consensus, as you saw in the recent, slightly cacophonous BBC debate, about how to do it. You disaggregate the elements of the otherwise defunct withdrawal agreement. You take the protections for the 3.2 million European Union nationals in our country, you put them into law, you reserve the payment of the 39 billion. Creative ambiguity needed there, I think, until the solution. And then, of course, you solve the problems of free movement of goods across the Irish, Northern Irish and other borders to where they logically belong. And that is in the context of the free trade agreement that we will negotiate in the implementation period after we have come out on October the 31st. And, of course, there will be those who say, oh, it will be all very difficult, and Brussels will say non, and rien ne va plus. And all I can say is I am utterly convinced that with the right energy and the right commitment, common sense will prevail. But just in case it does not, we must prepare to come out anyway. And we must be able to come out on WTO terms so that for the first time in these negotiations, we carry conviction. And it's precisely because we will be preparing between now and October the 31st for a no-deal Brexit that we will get the deal we need. And if we can get this done and get it over the line, then we will pitchfork this incubus off our backs, we will end the sense of drift and indecision, and we will be able to get on with a fantastic modern Conservative agenda. And if I could sum up in one sentence my ambition for this country, it is to unite our country, unite our society, and to bring the whole of the UK together in the way that we were able to do in London. Because when I became elected 11 years ago, they talked of a tale of two cities in London. We had 4 of the 6 poorest boroughs in the whole of the UK. Well, I can tell you after 2 terms, 8 years, at the end of my time as mayor, we had none of the poorest 20 boroughs anywhere in the UK in London. Society came together, and how did we do it? We did it by fantastic investments in infrastructure to help people on modest incomes get to their place of work. We got crime down to about 20%, we got the murder rate down by 50%, and of course we championed the resurgence of education in London. And now is the time to apply that formula. Education, investment in infrastructure, use of technology to bring our whole country together. Because too many people, look at that Brexit vote, too many people feel left behind by the incredible success of this country. And our ambition must be now to bring Britain, bring the whole of the UK together, uniting all 4 nations, the awesome, foursome, and uniting society. And you do it first with increased education funding, and I want to level up across the country. I want to see fantastic infrastructure, and I would like to be the Prime Minister who helps Andy Street to do here in the West Midlands with his fantastic plans for metro rail connectivity, what we were able to do with Crossrail and the tube upgrades in London. We should be pushing forward broadband across the whole country, and that is the way, far quicker than the current programme, and that is the way to create the platform for business to grow and invest. And we know that this incredible UK economy soars as it does, like an eagle, because it has two wings: a dynamic free market enterprise culture and fantastic public services, each giant wing propelling the other. And Jeremy Corbyn just simply does not understand that. It's not just that he's a Hamas-supporting, anti-Semitism condoning apologist for Moscow. You continue with all the compound adjectives that you're familiar with. He would whack up taxes: corporation tax, financial transaction tax, inheritance tax, income tax up to 50%, all to pay for his deranged £300 billion programme of renationalisation. And he and John McDonnell would pluck by taxation so many feathers from the wealth-creating wing that the whole UK economy would go into a death spiral. So let's keep Corbyn out. Let's keep McDonnell's plucking fingers away from this country. And let's take Britain forward. Let's take Britain forward and all the incredible range of businesses and industries in which we lead the world. We are here in the birthplace not just of the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution. The incredible thing is that Birmingham and the West Midlands are today still the home of revolutions in new technology that will not only cut CO2, the battery technology that's being pioneered in this area, not only cut CO2, but create tens of thousands of jobs this year and in the future. What we need to discover now, my friends, is a new confidence in our country. We need to revitalise our party. We need to unite and defeat Jeremy Corbyn, and I believe we can do it. And in case I have failed to make this point earlier on in these remarks, and seeing as I have 32 seconds left, let me remind you that the last time I had to face an emanation of the London Labour left, considerably more fertile and ingenious than Jeremy Corbyn, I was able to defeat him when we Conservatives were 17 points behind Labour in London. We did it then, we can do it again. We can and we must. And I believe that if I'm allowed to succeed in this contest, with your help, we will. And I hope I can count on your support. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do I go on? Thank you.
I want to spend as much time as possible talking about your plans for the future, but you know as well as I do that there is one subject on everybody's lips today, and they want to know why the police were called to your house in the early hours of Friday morning.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you very much for your kind remarks and your generous introduction, and thank you everybody for coming along to these first and most important hustings that we're going to be having. I don't know, it's not the most important. Be careful what I say. They'll all be important, but these are the first. Ian, listen. I think what people have come here today, seductive interviewer, there you are. I think people have. I don't think they want to hear about that kind of thing. Unless I'm wrong. I think. Forgive me. I think what they want to hear. What they want to hear is what my plans are for the country and for our party.
We will come on to that.
And I know you're going to have to come back, and I salute your indefatigability as a journalist. But I'm under the sad obligation of wanting to get my message across to our party.
Well, you've just taken up a minute with that answer, which has told us absolutely nothing. If the police If the police are called to your home, it makes it everyone's business. You are running for the office of not just leader of the Conservative Party, but Prime Minister. So therefore, a lot of people who admire your politics do call into question your character, and I think it is incumbent on you to answer that question.
That's, okay, well, look, that's a fair point. And people are entitled to ask about me and my determination, my character, and what I want to do for the country. And let me just tell you that when I make a promise in politics about what I'm going to do, I keep that promise, and I deliver. And sometimes I must confess that when I was mayor in London, I even delivered some of the promises that people thought were most eccentric and most unwise. I mean, people said that we shouldn't have an open platform on the back of the new Route Master bus. I think they said that Brussels was against it, and that it was against health and safety. But we delivered it, and we delivered cuts in crime, as I said.
With respect, you're completely avoiding my question.
Well, I've told you I was going to tell the good folk who have come here about. You asked about my character. Actually, I'm not avoiding your question. You asked a very direct question about my character, and what I'm telling you.
Let me put it another way.
What I'm telling you is that when it comes to
does a person's private life have any
promises,
bearing on their ability to do the job as Prime Minister?
Promises, and when you look at my determination to deliver for people who vote for me, when I say I will do X, I generally speaking deliver X plus 10. So we said we were going to cut crime. We actually cut crime, as I said, by almost 20%. We cut the murder rate in London by 50%. We massively increased investment in transport, and it was, broadly speaking, a golden age. And I think most people, if I can say, most people would really rather judge my ambitions and my character and my programme by what I deliver.
No, what they want to know is... Just answer that. It is a very simple question. I think any politician, I shall ask Jeremy Hunt the same question as well. Does a person's private life...
Don't boo! No. Don't boo the great man.
When he answers this question, I will move on. No. Does a person's private life have any bearing on their ability to discharge the office of Prime Minister?
Well, look, I've tried to give my answer pretty exhaustively. I think what people want to know is whether I have the determination and the courage to deliver on the commitments that I'm making, and it will need a lot of grit right now. And I think people are entitled to think about this, and this is a relevant consideration, actually, Ian. When I was mayor, we went through some very tough times, and we had the deepest recession for 50 years. We had riots, which you may remember. We had strikes. We had all sorts of really difficult things to deal with. The Olympics themselves, by the way, were no picnic to begin with. I mean, the opening, the 3 weeks before the Olympics were a heavily disguised disaster, actually. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And it was my job to keep people together, to bring our city together, and to get the job done. And that, I think, is what the people of this country are looking for now. They're looking for somebody with the determination and the courage and the application to get Brexit over the line, to relaunch our party, and then to take the fight to the socialists. That's what people want.
So just to be clear, you're not going to make any comment at all on what happened last night?
I think that's pretty obvious from the foregoing, Ian. But
Okay.
But I've sat where you've sat. I understand the responsibilities.
Well, I wouldn't have spent the first 5 minutes on it had you answered the first question.
Well, I did answer it.
Anyway.
Right,
okay, well, let's move on.
If you want to give me another opportunity to say what I want to do, I'm happy to do it.
It's day one. You've been appointed Prime Minister. You've been to see the Queen. You've done the Where There Is Discord, May We Bring Harmony bit on the steps of Downing Street. What's the first thing that you as Prime Minister do when you sit down at your desk? What's the one thing that's driven you that you want to get accomplished on that first day?
Well, I've spoken of three things just today. We need to do more for education funding in our country, and I think that the formula currently doesn't work. And speaking as somebody who's very lucky in his life, I've been very lucky, but I want to see kids around the country have an opportunity, have the basic tool of self-improvement that every child in this country deserves. And at the moment, the funding formula does not work for schools across the UK in the way that it should. We need to level up, and we need to do it fast. So that's number one. Number two, I want to see, as I've said earlier on, I want to see a rollout of full fibre across the country. It's insane that there are whole towns in the UK, rural areas, that are not getting access to the internet in the way that they have in Spain. The internet is no longer a luxury. It's the basic utensil of economic growth and of communication. And we've got now whole areas of the country where people are looking at the spinning pizza wheel of doom, when in Spain, they have 85% coverage of full fibre. We should be, if they can do it in Spain, and we got 7% in the UK. If they can do it in Spain, we should do it here. And then, of course, I mean, this is going to be a very busy day, but I can. As you will know, we have an immediate job of work to do to get ready for coming out of the EU on October the 31st. And to do that, obviously, we'll need to.
And on that first day, we'll come on to Brexit in just a second, but on that first day, you'll also be appointing your cabinet. I don't expect you to appoint your cabinet here, you'll be pleased to know. No. But will you offer Michael Gove a cabinet job? Well,
Ian, you've just said that you don't expect me to appoint my cabinet here, and you just, you know.
No, just. I don't expect you to say
You're a brilliant
question
and you're a very tough interrogator, but you could at least be consistent in your approach.
I don't expect you to tell me which job, but do you want him in your team?
I see there are plenty of candidates here in this room, and it would be invidious of me to speculate about that. But what I will say, actually, is that there is, at the moment, probably a greater wealth of talent in the Parliamentary Conservative Party than I think I've ever seen in my lifetime.
That's enough sucking up to the front row.
I'm just telling you.
Right, Brexit. October the 31st, obviously a very important date. Now, your critics accuse you of slightly pivoting on your commitment at your leadership launch to leave by that date, come what may. Can you reassure this audience that that will happen, come what may?
Yeah, I mean, all I said was the most bizarre thing. All I said in the BBC debate, which was basically, the whole thing was completely inaudible, but what I said was that leaving on October the 31st was, my words were eminently feasible. Which was taken to mean that I wasn't 100% determined to do it. Eminently feasible means it's not only that we are going to do it, but it's possible to do it because it's eminently feasible.
But will you do it?
Of course we can do it.
No,
yes.
Course, I know we can do it.
That's the spirit.
But will we do it?
Hold that thought.
But
that's the spirit.
I know.
That's the kind of can-do attitude that will get you a place in the cabinet unless you're careful.
Oh, really?
That's what we want to hear.
Flattery will get you everywhere. No, but seriously, if you say it's eminently feasible, that means it's possible. What this audience wants to hear is that you are definitely committed to doing it. You know it will be done, not just can be done, and you've got a plan for that.
Let me. I think it's worth spending a bit of time on this because this is obviously the number one task, and clearly. There is a change in politics since March the 29th when we failed to come out and then failed to come out again on April the 8th. And as I was saying in my introduction, what we have now is both parties really staring down the barrel because, as I said, we're losing votes to parties that are quite properly feasting on our failure to get this done, both the Liberal Democrats and, of course, the New Brexit Party. And you would expect them. You would expect them to move into this territory because we failed to get it done. And so I think all of us in the Conservative Party and in the Labour Party, who are not doing that much better than us, I mean, you know, superhuman incompetence of the Labour Party, they actually managed to go backwards in the recent council elections. We didn't do very well, I have to say. But they went backwards too. They are facing, like us, an existential crisis unless we get this done, unless we come together, take our responsibilities soberly and with maturity as elected representatives and get out with a sensible deal. And as I was saying, there are various elements that we have to get right. Yes, I think we should disaggregate the provisions on citizenship, and there are some other things that we could do unilaterally and in a supererogatory way, and the things we could pass through our House of Commons, and we should. And sensible things on Gibraltar or whatever. Then of course, there is the question of the money, and that is difficult, and people will expect us to pay the 39 billion.
Do you accept we have to pay some of it?
I think it's important that as the UK's negotiator, we should retain some creative ambiguity about the money until such time as we get a resolution.
But what does that say about Britain as a country? If we commit to something, and we are legally obliged to pay at least part of it, what does it say if you leave that in constructive ambiguity?
I think what it says is that this is a country that is determined to conduct itself in accordance with the tradition of EU negotiations, because I have never known an EU negotiation that did not climax with the financial settlement. One of the most eccentric features of our negotiating style over the last 3 years is that we decided to anticipate that.
But you were in the cabinet that agreed
that denouement, and to put the money across the line first. And actually, you raise a very important point, and one of the earliest things that, against which I protested in cabinet was this curious decision to put the money in first.
But if you couldn't persuade Theresa May, how are you going to persuade the EU?
I was, as you know, in our system, the Prime Minister is primus inter pares, and it was difficult to persuade not only her but the rest of the cabinet, of my point of view. And I hope very much that, with the kind of gung-ho spirit that you have shown today,
I think I'm going to be Brexit Secretary
in the cabinet, with the kind of determination that I know that colleagues have, we can get this thing done. But the most important point, as you know, is neither the provisions on citizenship or the ongoing court cases or any of that stuff. The most important issue is the 175 pages of what's called the Northern Ireland backstop. And clearly there is an issue that has to be handled with great tact, with great sensitivity, but it can be done. And everybody understands that there are solutions to the problems of free movement of goods across the Northern Irish border, and this is agreed amongst all.
Can I just ask about an aspect
all
of this?
candidates, or both candidates,
Just on the no deal scenario. Yes. You've said that we would leave under the GATT24 rules. Now, Mark Carney yesterday, you will have seen, completely rubbished that. I gather Liam Fox has as well, and today Michel Barnier's spokesman has said that that could not happen. You wouldn't be able to avoid immediate tariffs in the event of a no deal. What do you know that they don't?
Well, of course, it is logically true that in order to make progress under GATT24, paragraph 5b, it is vital that both sides agree. And I think what Mark and the various others that you mentioned would acknowledge is that it is not in the interests of our friends and partners, I believe, unilaterally to impose tariffs if we decide not to.
No, but the rules say that's what would have to happen.
Actually, the rules say that both sides can decide not to impose tariffs, and that is what we could do.
What incentive would there be for the EU not to do that?
Well, I think just this, that if the EU decided unilaterally to impose tariffs on goods for the United Kingdom, it would probably be the first time since the Napoleonic continental system that there had been such a pointless interruption of trade between us, and I don't think that they would want to go down that route. The commonsensical solution, as everybody I think knows, and I think all the candidates in the BBC debate were in the same place or roughly the same place, the commonsensical solution is to take the questions of the resolution of the backstop issue, take them, the maximum facilitations that we will need, and put them where they logically belong in the context of the free trade agreement that we will negotiate after we come out on October the 31st. That is the way to do it.
1 minute left. I'm going to ask the same question to Jeremy Hunt as well. What's the biggest personal crisis you've ever faced, and what lessons did you draw from it?
I think we had some. I think the London riots probably weren't the easiest time, because this was a moment.
Crisis.
This was a moment. Yeah, I was on holiday. It was.
I remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was a total
Rockies,
disaster. I was literally 400 miles from the nearest airport, and it was a catastrophe. And I arrived at Calgary. I had to hire two new cars, and I drove 400 miles. And as I got to the airport, I could there was BBC TV news footage running of these riots, and I felt an absolutely overwhelming sense of obligation and responsibility and horror. And of course, when I got there, I immediately did absolutely everything I could to get out on the streets and to help to bring the city together and to turn it round. And actually, a year later, in spite of the riots, Londoners came together and put on the most spectacular Olympic Games, Paralympic Games that had ever been staged.
So the lesson is don't go on holiday.
So the lesson is don't give up, because this country can achieve amazing things.
Right, time for questions. Right, if we could have the lights up. Jonathan Gullis has a question. Jonathan, where are you? Over here.
Jonathan Gullis, proud parliamentary candidate for Stoke-on-Trent North, Kids Grove and Talk. Mr Johnson, would you increase police levels back to pre-2010 levels?
Yes, I think that the police funding needs, in addition to education, but we need to do more to get police out on the streets. And when I've seen the figures here in this part of the country, we've got far too many kids dying still, partly as a result of this appalling gang crime and knife crime, which is being driven, by drugs and the county lines stuff that's going on. You need police out there, and you need, I'm afraid, stop and search. If you're going to do things to reduce gang crime and knife crime, you have to back the police. And I know that stop and search is controversial, but in the 18 months after I became Mayor of London, we took something like 11,000 knives off the streets of London, and lo and behold, serious youth violence went down 32%, the murder rate went down 50%, and the deaths of young kids also fell very sharply. So I believe, and we did it, to get to your point, by keeping police numbers at or around 32,000. I really believe strongly in backing the police politically and legally, but also in getting them out there and helping them to do their job that they signed up to do.
Do you think over the last 9 years the police haven't felt backed up? When Theresa May was Home Secretary, the police numbers have been cut by 20,000. If you talk to many police officers, as I do on my radio show all the time, they are demoralised. What can you do, apart from just increasing the numbers, what can you do to help morale in the police force?
Well, if I may say, there's one thing that you need to do as a leader of a country, or as the representative of great public services, and that is to recognise that you're not just the chief consumer, you're actually there to provide encouragement and support. You're also, in a sense, the chief producer. And we did that in London. I was the Commissioner for Policing and Crime, effectively, and just as I was Chairman of Transport for London. And if you want to drive change, and you want to make reforms, and you want to make savings, which you obviously have to do, and we all as Conservatives understand that you have to do that, you have to make sure that you're backing up the people who are delivering fantastic frontline services. And you're having, I would never do anything to step away from the police or to show that they had anything less than my 100% support.
Will you go as far?
And so to go, I think one mistake we made was to take the foot off the gas when it came to stop and search. And the police didn't feel that they had top cover from the politicians. And I would want to give that again.
But would you echo the promise that Sajid Javid made during the campaign to restore the police numbers back to 2010, as Jonathan was suggesting? There are 148,000 police officers in 2010. It's something like 120 to 125,000 now. Would you make the same commitment that he did?
I think Saj, he's a terrific Home Secretary, and I think that I think that was the right thing to say. Yeah, I think we want, obviously there are savings.
Are you saying it?
He's the Home Secretary, If that's his policy, I mean, he's no longer contending in this thing, but he's totally right. He's totally right, and I would want to drive that forward. Unless you have public policing, people don't necessarily have the sense of reassurance that they deserve.
Right, Jonathan, thank you. Let's go to Alec Bradley. Where's Alec? Over here.
In June last year, during a Foreign Office reception, you were asked about corporate concerns regarding a hard Brexit. You replied, "Fuck business." Is your attitude towards British jobs still as cavalier and as careless as it obviously was then?
Well, I must say that, I bitterly resent the way one stray remark to the Belgian ambassador, who was making the case that the UK would not be able to leave the European Union, I don't think that should be allowed to cloud what is, I think, a pretty extraordinary record as a politician for sticking up for business at every conceivable opportunity. And I can't think of any other politician, even conservative politician, who, from the crash of 2008 onwards, actually stuck up for the bankers. Can you think of anybody who stuck up for the bankers as much as I did? I defended them day in, day out against those who frankly wanted to hang them from the nearest
lamppost. What did you mean by that remark?
Because actually, it is financial services that contribute about £72 billion in tax to our economy. And I believe passionately in UK business. And as Foreign Secretary, I might say, in answer to the gentleman's question, I spend a lot of my time actually promoting UK business, both in this country and abroad. And I will continue to do so if I'm lucky enough to succeed.
You could have said, in response to the Belgian ambassador, you could have said, well, businesses are terribly resilient. They will adapt to new circumstances.
Which is true.
But instead, you said that phrase. What did you actually mean by that?
Well, I was referring to very powerful lobby groups who wanted to have a particular type of exit from the European Union, or non-exit from the European Union, that would not actually achieve the result that we want. I really think, no, come on. I really think, you look at my record, both as mayor and indeed everything I've ever written or done, I'm the most passionately pro-business conservative politician you could hope to meet. And I've never known one single stray, distorted remark wrenched out of context to be so widely and erroneous.
But you do have a habit of making these remarks. That's the point, isn't it? There are so many occasions over the last 15, 20 years where you have had to clarify your remarks.
I love hearing questions from you, but what about more from the audience? I mean, I think if you go through the millions of words that I have said or written in the last 30 years, of course, like with our friend at the cocktail party. I think it was my own cocktail party coming. You can find things that can be made to look as though they mean something else, or you can distort them.
Let's have another question then.
That's just a fact of life.
Janice Sylvester Hall. Where are you, Janice? Over here.
Good afternoon. So I'm Janice Sylvester Hall, and as a councillor in the district of Lichfield, I'm keen to hear your plans now for HS2.
Let me tell you that HS2, I represent Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and HS2, I'm afraid, I mean, we managed to get a tunnel out through a lot of it, but the fact is that it is going to cause a great deal of difficulties for my constituency. If I wanted to be chaired in triumph down the streets of Uxbridge, I would come out firmly against HS2. But
well, here's your opportunity.
But let me say, I'm a passionate believer in transport infrastructure in this country, and what I've decided to do is to and I hesitate before coming in and simply scrapping a great national project.
I have anxieties about the business case for HS2. I think there are questions, legitimate questions, that any incoming Prime Minister would want to satisfy himself about, or herself about, before what I think is a go, no-go decision in December, about profiling of the spend, and so on. What I will do, and I've discussed this with Andy Street and others, what I will do is I will have a review, but that will not be a review that interrupts the current timetable. I will ask Doug Oakerby, who chaired Crossrail originally and many other things, to look at that business case, to look at the profiling. And it would not, as I say, it would not interrupt the current timetable.
How long would the review last?
It would obviously enable the go-no-go, the final go-no-go decision to be taken in December. And, for me, thinking about infrastructure in this country, we clearly need to do better. We clearly need to do better. And that's one of the lessons of Brexit. It's not just broadband. We should be doing incredible things with Northern Powerhouse Rail, and we should be doing wonderful things here in the West Midlands as well. So I want to have a holistic approach.
It's interesting you mentioned visionary projects. You had a visionary transport project, the Thames Estuary Airport, and I was rather disappointed to read last week that you've abandoned that, because I thought if you became Prime Minister, you might actually bring it back.
Well, all I can say is that that is not on the agenda.
Why?
Because Parliament has voted to give outline planning permission to, as everybody knows, to the third runway, and again, which is in West London. And I've long had anxieties about that project as well. What I can say there is that I will continue to be very concerned about the ability of the promoters of the third runway to meet their legal obligations in terms of noise pollution and air quality, and I will follow the current court cases with great interest.
So we can't look forward to the prospect of a Prime Minister lying down before the JCBs?
You will have to wait until the bulldozers appear.
It's a possibility. Right, Mark Malek. Where is Mark Malek? Oh, up in the cheap seats.
Hello. Given that a substantial number of the candidates in this election have admitted to either taking or attempting to take illegal drugs, do you think our current approach to drugs in this country is working?
Thanks, Mark. Look, I think that I hear lots of arguments about this. One of the encouraging things that I've seen at the moment is that actually use of drugs, of cannabis is declining. I'm not an enthusiast for people taking more drugs. Let me put it that way. I think drugs are bad, notwithstanding the solitary and inconclusive event that has been extensively documented that took place in my room in university when I was 19. I think drugs are bad. I really do. And so I hesitate before moving to some glib solution of legalization or deregulation. I listen with great care to what the police tell me nowadays, and with great respect to some of the arguments that they make. But what I think we need to do is to be very, very tough, particularly on the county lines gangs that are now bringing drugs and drug-related crime out into, including gang crime and knife crime, out into areas that have not known them before. And that is the problem, in my view. And what I would like to see, rather than simply bringing them into the free market, I would like to see a much more ruthless campaign to round up the ringleaders of these county lines operations and to put them behind bars, because they're doing terrible, terrible damage to young lives. And they are. I may say that middle-class drug use, I think Saj pointed this out himself, he's absolutely right. Middle-class drugs use in this country by kids is helping to encourage the dissemination of these drugs in these gangs across the country and costing the lives of so many young kids who are involved in those gangs, and that is an absolute tragedy.
But what can be done on the county lines gangs? What can be done that isn't being done now?
Well, I don't think it doesn't seem to me that we're rolling up the networks in the way that we could, and they use this complicated jargon. They have all sorts. They disappear into into the country, as they call it, and they vanish. And it doesn't seem to me that we're gripping it. And no disrespect to the police or to National Crime Agency or anybody who's involved in trying to solve this. But I don't know about colleagues, but I talk to too many people involved in mental health services, in all sorts of in social services, who really feel that the county lines drugs gangs are a massive problem, and we need to crack down on it. We need a national campaign to beat it.
Mark Eastwood is next. Mark, over there.
Good afternoon. Mark Eastwood, another proud parliamentary candidate for Dewsbury in West Yorkshire. I'd like to ask Boris, I've been selected as parliamentary candidate in a key target seat, which includes a large Asian Muslim population. What are you going to do to ensure that we attract more ethnic minorities to the Conservatives?
Well, thank you, Mark. And I think actually our party has changed out of all recognition in the last 20 years in terms of its, the breadth of its representation and of its appeal. And we can be very proud of the changes that have happened, but they haven't gone far enough. And we need to do much more still to reach out to black and minority ethnic communities across this country. And well, you need to do the kinds of things that we did in London. You need to have visible promotion of people from diverse communities across the city. You need to have a program of engagement in every mosque in your neighborhood. You need to be talking to people from those communities, and they need to feel what is true, that they have the hope of success and progress in the Conservative Party. And I was very proud actually when I was mayor of the diversity of the team that we had at the top of City Hall. And the message of Conservatives should be that anybody can make it. Anybody can make it in our society. And, you know, as I said on TV the other night, I was very proud that my Muslim great-grandfather, you know, what am I proud of? I'm proud he was a Muslim. I'm proud he came to this country, okay. and I think he'd be amazed that I became mayor of London and all the rest of it.
What do you make of the fact that the chairman, I think is Mohammed Amin is his name, the chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum, has apparently been expelled from the party in the last few days for disobliging comments he made about, it was either you or Jeremy, but I can't honestly remember which.
I'm so sorry, and I had no idea that had happened. But you know, we need to be reaching out, and I think we can be very proud of our record of success. The Tory party has changed a great deal in the last 10 years. You know, we've got Muslims at all level in the party, but not, you know, we've got representatives of every group.
In the BBC debate, you agreed with Sajid Javid that there should be an independent inquiry into Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. How serious is that problem in your view?
I think that any form of discrimination or prejudice is ugly and intolerable, and we must stamp it out.
Do you think it... have you had personal experiences? Have you had people come to see you to say, look, this is a real issue?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And, you know, look, I mean, discrimination can affect people in all sorts of ways and in all sorts of levels. And some people can deal with it more easily than others. And but when it happens, it is vicious, and we should be totally opposed to it. But yes, certainly people have come to me, and I've always tried to be sympathetic, and in every administration I've run, we've been totally generous in our approach and inclusive.
Nigel Sable. Over here.
Good afternoon. Mr. Johnson, can you cite 2 examples which will resonate with working people, where your work has had a beneficial effect on the prosperity of communities in the UK?
Yes, I can. I would single out what we did with the expansion of the London living wage, which was, I think, when I came into the mayoralty, we had about 27 companies that were paying it. After a few years, we had about 1,000 or more that were paying it. And there was a huge increase. Millions and millions of pounds went into the pockets of some of the poorest families in the city. And I was delighted that my friend George Osborne stole that policy, an act of theft I wholly condone, and made it into a national Conservative policy. And as a result, we Conservatives can be very proud of what we're doing in helping people on low incomes to take home more every week. And that's a great, great thing. And if I had what I want for our country is higher pay, not higher taxes. That should be our approach. Higher pay for the low paid, not higher taxes, and take people on low incomes out of tax. And I think the second thing that I would mention,
just before we get to the second thing, can I just on the promise that you made, I think it was in one of your columns, that you want to reduce tax for people earning between 50 and 80,000 to take them out of the top tax bracket. How does that fit with lowering taxes for the lower paid?
Because it's part of it would be part of a package where we would lift up allowances for the low paid to help relieve the burden on the low paid. And obviously continue to work on expanding the living wage. But I don't think that we Conservatives should be at all shy of discussing the way in which people on middle incomes, and I'm talking about nurses or heads of maths departments or police inspectors, who are being captured in the higher tax rates. And that seems to me to be something that we Conservatives should take an interest in. And if we can do something to reduce the burden of taxation, and not just on the whole country, but on people on middle incomes, that will be a very good thing. We should not be at all shy of discussing that.
Okay, your second thing.
And the second thing, well remembered yet. The second thing I'm very proud of, that really made a huge difference, I think, to people across our city, was well, I could mention a lot of things, but I'll mention housing. We built a huge number of homes. But I want to stress, since I know that this is a slightly neuralgic issue for good Conservatives, we built them, and we were able to build them by making use of fantastic transport infrastructure to develop brownfield sites, transport hubs, where it was possible to build good quality homes without going on to the green belt. And that makes a huge difference to the people of this city. And the people of our country.
Do you have a target per year?
Well, in 1968, I think this country produced about 470,000 homes. It was huge. And we should be at about 300,000, where, as you know, perhaps more, we're well behind those numbers. I'm not going to set a target, but we're clearly falling short at the moment. But in order to reach those numbers, we have to put in fantastic transport infrastructure. And let me give you one example of where we could do it. Crossrail 2. What is happening with this guy, Sadiq Khan? I don't want to, sound like the President of the United States, but, this is a fantastic project. If we built Crossrail 2, you would not only solve the problems of all the commuters coming in to southwest London, but you would liberate. You'd be able to build about 200,000 homes on brownfield sites in the Lower Lee Valley. Come on, we should be doing it. We should get on with it, and that is the way to do it. I don't want to set targets because you don't need them at the moment. What you need is a much more ambitious program.
Nigel Demery.
How much longer have we got, Ian?
We've got less than 10 minutes.
All right, superb.
Good.
Are you bored?
No, I just wondered.
I can liven it up if you like.
No, it's all right. No. There's some quite hostile bowling, I may say. But, you know, it's all right.
Mr. Johnson, you touched on this in your address, and the question was actually written for both contenders, so I'm sure you won't take this personally. You split the country in 2016. You split the electorate in 2017. You split Parliament and the party in 2019, and there's a danger of splitting the United Kingdom. All this happened on your watch. We've been called the nasty party again after 17 years.
No.
Please explain how you will unify all these factions. Thank you.
First of all, actually, I think that the only way to unite our party and indeed our country is to uphold the mandate of the people and get Brexit done. Because otherwise, you know, the paradox is, and I think with great respect to any other candidates, we need now somebody who wants to get it done and who believes in that particular project and who can see the opportunities that it offers our country. And that is that. And you see, what has happened over the last 3 years is that far from coming together, as we have failed to come out, far from healing the divisions, the tensions have grown and they have got worse. So now is the time. Get it done in a way that is positive and sensible, and then to get onto the real heart of your question, then show what I call the essential symmetry at the heart of our conservative beliefs. And I mean that vital symbiosis between free market economics and fantastic public services and infrastructure. And that is a winning formula. And believe me, the huge bulk of the British electorate and British population totally get that. Indeed, there's only a very tiny minority of people in politics who don't share those views, and they're represented by a semi-Marxist cabal that's currently piratically taken hold of the Labour Party. And our opportunity is to advance that agenda again, based, as I say, on education, infrastructure, and technology, do some fantastic things for our country in the next year or so, and believe me, that will bring our party together, and we will restore the winning position that we deserve. That's my agenda.
How do you bring together the Conservative Parliamentary Party? Now, you've got over half their votes, so that's a good start. But how can you get...
But let's just hold that thought. That was a very good point, Ian, you just made, which a characteristically good point, if I may say so.
Let me finish the question, because I want to know how you can unite Dominic Grieve on the one side and Marc Francois on the other. Because Dominic Grieve, I don't know if you heard him on the Today programme this morning, he was essentially threatening to bring down your government before you'd literally done anything. You could be the Lady Jane Grey of British Prime Ministers if you're not careful.
But I mean, a couple of points in answer to that. First of all, actually, I've got people from all wings of the party supporting me, and you know, you look at who we've got. I think Bob Neal told me yesterday that he wanted to support me, who's been very much of the Dominic Grieve persuasion. I have people from Lucy Fraser to Steve Baker to everybody can see what I'm trying to do.
If there are 15 or 20 of them, Dominic Grieve, maybe Philip Hammond, lots of others, who have threatened to vote against the Conservative government in a vote of confidence, therefore presumably they wouldn't be able to stand in a future general election. If they're willing to do that, they're hardly persuadable, are they?
Well, let's see. Because you know what I think? I think these are sensible, sober, mature, good people. And they can see that politics has changed since March the 29th. And they can see, we can all see, on both sides of the House, we can see the reality that we face. Unless we get this thing done, unless we work together, unless we swallow our pride and our differences and come together, I think we're going to have a terminal problem in our party. And that's the incentive that I think all of us face. And I think it was Dr. Johnson who said, depend upon it, sir, nothing concentrates the mind so powerfully in a man as the knowledge that he's going to be hung in a fortnight, or something like that. And I'm misquoting it, but that is the reality. We need to do this, not just for the sake of democracy, though that is vital, but also because our great party will otherwise not be able to go on and deliver all the fantastic things that people on both sides, all sides of our parties, want to do. We need to get this thing done and move on.
What do you make of the fact that Rory Stewart said he would be quite happy to work with Nigel Farage to bring Brexit about, but wouldn't work with you?
Well, what can I say? I just referred to the answer I gave a few moments ago, which was that there is an extraordinary wealth of talent in the Conservative Party, and I'm sure that everybody will be wanting to put their shoulders to the wheel and get things done. And let's hope that goes for Rory as well.
Boris Johnson, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. I'll see you later on. I'm coming to Sutton Coldfield in a minute. See you. Bye. See you, brother. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a quick 2-minute reset, and then we will see a short video film from the Jeremy Hunt campaign.
Hi, I'm Jess, and 1 year ago I was hired as the campaign manager for Northampton North. It's been a busy year, but we're making real progress. My focus has been on growing our membership and recruiting new activists. We have a fantastic team out knocking on doors and hearing from residents all year round. Because of this, we have a team ready to win at the next election.
My name is Akram Mwanga. My role is Borough Campaign Manager for Barking and Newham. My role involves bridging the communication gap between the association officers and the volunteers, and also the voters, and also CCHQ. I'm the go-to man.
My name's Reece Fox, and I'm the Borough Campaign Manager for Enfield and Haringey. When I started in Enfield and Haringey in 2017, my main aim was to build capacity. My team were going out once a week with maybe 1 or 2 people. Now, in 2019, they're going out 3 times a week with triple that figure. And that capacity building programme is really paying off.
It's been hard work, but now that the association has me as a full-time campaign manager, we can work together to get more members and more activists. And it's working. We've managed to grow our membership by more than 1/3 in just 12 months. It's partly because of the approach we take. I'm a big believer in making campaigning fun.
My priorities for the future are training and more training, getting more volunteers, and we need to get the support base for the party to carry out a massive campaign. We need to get more volunteers and capable to go onto the doorstep and engage with voters on a day-to-day basis.
It is thanks to your support that we can continue to build capacity.
Across the country, campaign managers like me are doing great work, winning elections, raising money and bringing in new members.
Labour are ready. In the last 7 months, they have recruited 102 members of staff. So with your support, we can continue to build capacity and take the fight to Labour.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to watch a video from the Jeremy Hunt campaign. Then Jeremy will address us for up to 7 minutes.
The most striking quality about Jeremy Hunt was his unwavering commitment to get results. I think perhaps part of that is to do with his background in business. No matter what the obstacles were, he was prepared to push through them. He wanted to get results.
I've seen him deliver on the things that matter most to the British people. He has credibility from all sides. I trust him on Brexit.
I've known Jeremy for 40 years, and about 25 of those years we've worked together, setting up various businesses. Those early days were absolutely about his determination and grit. He would never give up.
When I first met Jeremy, I realised he was a man who actually was committed to making a difference.
In 2008, I lost my baby son Joshua as a consequence of serious failures in his care during my campaign to kind of uncover the truth about what happened. I was struggling to be heard, and Jeremy really listened and treated me as a grieving dad rather than a troublemaker. I knew that this was somebody who was going to change things.
My mum died quite tragically in poor care in Mid-Souths. Jeremy was incredibly kind. He saw the bereaved daughter behind the campaigner, and he saw it was people that mattered.
I have known Jeremy Hunt since the early 2000s. He and his business partner started funding the education of children living with HIV in our community-based programme. Jeremy's generosity was sensed by us all.
That desire to make a difference really drives him. It's never been about him. It's always been about what he can do to help others.
The work he's done will save the lives of countless babies, and other families will not have to go through the kind of pain that we did.
People often underestimate Jeremy because he comes across as being such a polite and generous and nice person, and he is. But I remember hearing him warning the EU not to mistake British politeness for British weakness, and I thought that just about sums him up.
I was pessimistic about the London Olympics. I thought, we could mess this up. I remember talking to Jeremy in the build-up. He said, no, we're a great country. We can do this if we have the right mindset. The delivery was outstanding. It also had this element of fun. I know that Jeremy was very involved in getting that balance right.
He believes in Britain as a force for good in the world. He's shown strong values at the FCO and consistently good judgment.
Negotiate. Toughing it out when things get really difficult, keeping going, having a vision. Those are the skills that we need in a Prime Minister.
He's a unifier. He's somebody who can reach out to different groups of people.
My dad always taught me that politics should be about making a difference in ordinary people's lives. And Jeremy made a huge difference to our lives. He gave us hope, and that for me was the main thing, that he gave us hope in some very, very dark days.
Colleagues, friends, we've had an exciting start to this campaign. For me, here in the West Midlands, I've been to a steel factory outside Kidderminster, a chocolate factory in Tenbury. I've had a free haircut. I made a Balti in Birmingham. And, the internet, because I'm the underdog, the internet has been kind to me for the first time in my life. And they're running a campaign to help me find the slogan that I should be putting to the country and to the membership. And we've had hashtag take a punt on Hunt, hashtag Jezzers the Bezzer, and hashtag Hunty McHuntface. Now be very, very careful how you say that one, because we're the party of family values. Friends, we are in a very serious situation. Get things wrong, and there will be no Conservative government, maybe even no Conservative party. Get things right, and we can deliver Brexit, unite the party, and send Corbyn packing. And that's our choice. But in this Brexit debate, we've had a lot of discussion about how we Brexit, but not enough discussion about who. Who is the Prime Minister we trust to send to Brussels and lead us out of this crisis? And we send the wrong person. Catastrophe awaits. If you choose me, I'll be the first Prime Minister who's been an entrepreneur by background. How many people here have set up their own business? Put up your hand if you set up. That's the Conservative family. Lots and lots of hands going up. And what is it that we entrepreneurs do? We negotiate. If we send the wrong person, there's going to be no negotiation, no trust, no deal, and if Parliament stops that, maybe no Brexit. Send the right person, and there's a deal to be done. Send that right person, and we can do what we all need to do, which is to come back with something positive for our country. And that's what I want to do. And when we do that, what incredible opportunities await this fantastic country. You know, someone who set up on their own, I am champing at the bit to turn our economy into the most pro-business, pro-enterprise, fastest growing, most high-tech, greenest economy in Europe. That's what I did. I want other young people to be able to do exactly the same thing I did. And you know, we have the best universities in Europe. We've got more tech entrepreneurs, more medicines being developed. We could be the world's next Silicon Valley. And that could happen right here in the West Midlands, because you've got the 5G pilot happening in Birmingham, you've got driverless cars happening at Warwick Manufacturing Group, you've got so many gaming companies in Leamington Spa. It's been rechristened Silicon Spa, not the kind of spa that you take your wife to after you've got her nationality wrong, mind you. But there is this potential, incredible potential, and I'm going to take a giant step to making that happen by a radical cut in corporation tax to 12.5% Irish levels to turbocharge the British economy. I want to land an economic... I want to land an economic jumbo jet on Europe's doorstep so that when it comes to those trade talks, they need us every bit as much as we need them. Now, I'm also the Foreign Secretary who wants Britain to walk tall in the world. My dad was in the Navy. We followed him around from Plymouth to Portsmouth to Surrey to Scotland, which is why, by the way, I'm passionate about our union. Thanks to his generation, we won the Cold War. And you know, the risks out there are increasing, which is why I've said I will increase defence spending to beyond 2% of GDP on top of the 0.7% aid commitment. And I've said I'll do that, not just because of increasing aggression from countries like Russia, because at the point of Brexit, I want the world to know that Britain, the country, one of the very few countries that has championed democratic values and the security necessary to underpin it. I want the world to know that Britain is here, Britain's back, Britain's voice is strong in the world, and we will defend our values. Now, I'd also be the first Prime Minister who's run